Annyeonghaseyo friends, and welcome back to the Torsie channel for something a little bit different today. We are going to do a rewind, which is going back to a music video that we love, Taemin's Advice, and getting all up in its business. First things first, of course, art is subjective, so this is just my interpretation of the art, and it's the fun thing about art that we all get to interpret it differently, even if we're interpreting it differently to the actual artists themselves. So this is my interpretation. You may have something different. That's cool. We can have a nice big chat about that. But this is what I saw. So let's go. The first thing about Advice for me is that it completes the holy trinity of Taemin's rebellion. Never Gonna Dance Again, Act 1 and Act 2 being the first two pieces. He has actually spoken very clearly about the title of Never Gonna Dance Again, that is his rebellion. He is known as the dancing idol. He is the best dancer in K-pop, and his form of rebellion would be to never dance again. Debuted at his Never Gonna Dance Again concert was Advice, a song that repeatedly says, best take my own device, and is a song about rebelling against, pushing back against everybody else's path for him and doing what he wants. So I will be referring to this as the Holy Trinity because I think it fits. So let's get into the lyrics, starting with the first verse and chorus. This is the official translation. Obviously, we're always going to lose something when we are no longer looking at the original language. However, because this is the official translation, I'm going to assume that these words have been chosen with intention, and so we're going to have a look at those as the words they have chosen to use. So first verse and chorus goes as such. Yeah, no matter what anyone says, my way. Nothing to tell from my face. They blurted out words without a filter. No, oh, oh, oh. Even the veil that hides the smile inside the glass mask is lost. You take me apart however you wish. You say things the way you'd like to. Moving around the tip of your tongue, you don't get it, do you? Never get the keys to my lock. Show your imagination in a more novel way. I destroy the torso that you were chasing after. You already know it too, one advice. I'll shoot the one advice. The more you try to trap me, I'll go off the rails, so take a good look. If you want to see the end, push my buttons. It's for you, one advice. Best take my own advice. So, starting with this first verse, picking out just a couple of words that really jumped out at me. The first one being veil. Even the veil that hides the smile inside the glass mask is lost. Veils are a running theme with Never Gonna Dance Again and now appearing here in Advice. In Criminal, Taemin was wearing a red veil. Interestingly, it was run backwards, so obviously it was shot with him pulling it off, but in Criminal, it actually runs with the veil coming back over his face. It is colored red because he is down in hell, and it is also opaque. You can't see a freaking thing through it. It's a really heavy material, and it's coming back up over his face to cover himself. That's the first veil we get in Never Gonna Dance Again. The second appear in all of the concept photos for Never Gonna Dance Again Act 2. So although it doesn't appear in the Idea music video, they do appear in all of the concept photos for Idea. The first one is blue and goes with his blue suit, a lovely sky blue that matches the heavens above. So now we are looking to heaven. The other ones are black and go with his black devilish outfit from Idea, which if you remember was a suit, blazer with no shirt, trousers, and a skirt. So the classic Taemin gender bending, blurring the lines, androgyny going on there. He has a black veil. With the second image of the black veil with the black outfit, it is paired with a crown of thorns. It is perfectly sensible with all things Taemin to look for religious iconography because it is almost always there. His Catholicism is obviously very, very strong and central to who he is as a person. And veils actually have a place in Catholicism. The Mother Mary is often depicted as having a veil over her face, and indeed if you were going to go visit the Pope right now as a woman, you would have to put a veil on over your face. So this image of Taemin wearing a veil and a crown of thorns is him representing both Mary and Jesus at the same time. He is representing masculinity and femininity at the same time, and humanity and divinity at the same time. And that's Taemin. He is forever working with duality. So interesting that veil has come up yet again. No, it's not shown in any of the concept photos or indeed in the music video, but this time it's spoken about. And that's the third time in this little holy trinity of his. The second thing is the glass mask. So a glass mask, of course, that's something that is a veneer, but is transparent. And it suggests to me that we think we have been able to see Taemin this entire time, that we think we've had complete access to him and we know exactly who he is, but he's telling us actually no, there was a veil. This whole time you thought you were seeing through, there was a veil between me and you. And it reminds me of an interview he did where he said, "Sometimes I lie out of necessity." That's the quote. Sometimes I lie out of necessity. So even when we think we're getting all of Taemin, actually we're not. The mask may be glass, but the veil isn't. Though, now both of them are lost. So we're going to get everything kind of full frontal from now on, if you'll excuse the expression. We have the AU section, which is very, very clear, and one could interpret as talking directly to the media and how they pick him apart. And then we come down to show your imagination in a more novel way, asking us to be a little more interesting. That changes a little later and we'll come to it. So then we get to the torso. I destroy the torso that you were chasing after. I've seen another version of this translation where somebody didn't use the word torso. However, you can hear Taemin singing the word torso in the song, torso. It's quite clear. So torso is the important word. And of course it is, because that's where the majority of his tattoos are. I think this is another form of the rebellion, just as Never Gonna Dance Again is saying my rebellion is refusing to dance. We have seen Taemin repeatedly over his career without his shirt on. And it might be expected of Taemin that he will perform without his shirt on. And so destroying the torso that you're chasing after, the thing we're chasing after is his semi-nudity, is this very typical Taemin behavior of being without his shirt. But he's destroying that torso, he's covering it with tattoos, or he's covering it up completely, but that torso is being destroyed, and that idea that he is going to perform in this one particular way is being destroyed. We then have, you already know it too, one advice, I'll shoot the one advice. What's most interesting about that is that both in this translation and in the subtitles of the music video, one is capitalized, which means it's a proper noun, a name. What it reminds me of is the way we capitalize him when we are talking about God. So if we were to say something like, oh, Greek and Roman gods and goddesses, we wouldn't capitalize the G of gods and goddesses. But when we are talking about the Abrahamic God, we use a capital G because it's the one God. When we talk about him, it's a capital H. So whether one is the media, whether it's SM Entertainment, whether it's God himself, whatever, one is being treated as an almighty presence, much like we talk about him as an almighty and omniscient presence. We then come on again, the more you try to trap me, I go off the rails, that's very clear. If you want to see the end, push my buttons. An end is an interesting choice. We could be talking about the end of his career, or the end of his life, which we see represented by a car crash later, and we'll get into that. But what he's saying is doing whatever this almighty power wants him to do would be the end of him. So going to the second verse and chorus, you keep stigmatizing, like it waves, mistakes continue. Without even knowing the reason again, my heart gets less saturated. AU looking for something to gossip about. AU complete the cruel history. It rings in my ears. You don't get it, do you? Never get the keys to my lock. Show your imagination in a more novel way. I destroy the torso that you were chasing after. You already know it too, one advice. I'll shoot the one advice. The more you try to trap me, I'll go off the rails, so take a good look. If you want to see the end, push my buttons. It's for you, one advice. Best take my own advice. So the first thing is stigmatizing. When I first read that, watching the music video, I went, ooh, stigmatizing, because it's such a specific word, and you could have said something like vilify, but they chose stigmatize. Waves, mistakes continues. So we're saying all of his mistakes are being stigmatized. Stigmatizing is another Catholic reference. It is from the word stigmata. So to stigmatize something or to put stigma upon something is to mark it with disapproval. Mark being the very important word because it is from stigmata. Stigmata are the marks of crucifixion. The wounds on your hands and feet from being crucified are stigmata. In Catholicism these days, stigmata is actually seen in quite a positive light because of Francis of Assisi and other sort of interesting phenomenon over time where people have spontaneously shown the marks of stigmata, and it's been seen as a sign of such extraordinary faith that you have actually manifested the marks of Christ's crucifixion upon your body. However, to have stigmata means one has to have been crucified first, and you are crucified for being a criminal. Criminal. Hey, you were crucified for doing something wrong. Christ was essentially crucified for inciting disobedience. And next to him were thieves. So what he's saying is these mistakes have been judged badly and he's being crucified for it, which is something that we use now as hyperbole. But for a Catholic, that's not to be used lightly. So stigmatizing was a really interesting and I think very purposeful word to use because it is deeply rooted in Catholicism and is more than simply disapproval. It is something that you are punished for. To get stigmata, you must have been punished. We go to the heart and the heart gets less saturated. To be saturated is to be soaked. So if you were to stand out in the rain and get completely soaked to the bone, you are saturated with water. But also we often think of saturation as color, that something can be oversaturated is to be over colorful. But to be less saturated, of course, is to lose color. So whether we're talking about color or whether we're talking about being soaked in something, he's saying that it's becoming less colorful or it's drying up, that his heart is going cold and dead because it is no longer full of life-giving blood or it is no longer saturated with color, and he's not even sure why. We then come to complete the cruel history. Looking for something to gossip about, complete the cruel history, it rings in my ears. It's very difficult when we're talking about a member of SHINee to see something like cruel history and not connect it to Junghyun's death. There have been incidences in K-pop where trigger warning, where a member of a band has committed suicide and then shortly after another member of the same band has committed suicide. And it was the case that after Junghyun's death, people were very concerned for the rest of the members of SHINee that they might follow suit or that this could harm them in some irreparable way. Completing the cruel history, it is difficult to interpret it as anything other than that, because SHINee does have a very tragic and very cruel history. If we are talking directly to the media, directly to the people who are gossiping about them, that kind of pushing and needling is the thing that ends up completing that kind of cruel history. Last, it's creepy, the drama you wanted. The moment it starts, it just gets twisted again. No, you're confused. Why are you crossing the line again? Voice, only you're right. The corner that I'll be trapped. It's floppy. I close my eyes discreetly. I don't have to cover my ears. No, you're confused. Only you know this love, yeah? Voice for me, the loser pours it out. Show your imagination in a sharper way. I destroy the torso you were chasing after. You already know it too, one advice. I'll shoot the one advice. The more you trap me, I'll go off the rails, so take a good look. If you want to see the end, push my buttons. It's for you, one advice. Best take my own advice. Best take my own advice. So, why are you crossing the line? I don't think that this is just for the media or just for whatever this phenomenal force of one advice is. I think this is actually aimed at Taemin's fans as well. Taemin has no problem telling us off when we don't treat him the way he wants to be treated. There have been a couple of V-Lives, for example, where a comment has come up and it's called him baby cheese, and he was with the other guys and he said, oh, they call me baby cheese. I don't know why they call me baby cheese. I don't like it. And then in a recent V-Live, somebody called him baby in the chat and he looked directly to camera and said, I'm nearly 30 years old. He has no problem letting us know when he doesn't enjoy our behavior and when we're not treating him the way he would like to be treated. And when we're doing that, we're crossing the line. And I think a fantastic example of that has actually been his enlistment, where he directly asked us to leave him alone and give him his space while he goes and enlists. And instead he was swarmed by people, cameras in faces, everyone all up in his grill. There are people camped outside of his base camp when he said, don't do that. And it is this idea that we know better than he does, this line, only you know this love, yeah? That we love him so much, we cross the line over and over again because, you know, we love you. Of course we want to baby you, or we love you. Of course we want to be all up in your grill when you're trying to enlist. With our love for him, we regularly cross the line and regularly overstep what he's asked us quite strictly not to do. So I don't think that's just the fact that the media also crosses the line. Of course, it was the media who was also there at his enlistment as well with their cameras up in his face. The media crosses the line constantly. Whoever this one advice crosses the line constantly. But hey, so do we. And it may not be you and me, but you can't deny that there are other people in the fandom that absolutely do that. We then talk about the corner, and he says, the corner that I'll be trapped, it's floppy. It means that the corner that he's being trapped in is actually not strong enough to hold him. Anything floppy falls down immediately, and that thing's going to fall down around him as well. Nothing strong enough to hold Taemin is going to do what he wants. And then we go to the loser pours it out, and this is another touch of death. We have a bit of a touch of death through all of the lyrics, saying that you're going to shoot one advice, saying if you want to see the end, push my button, saying that he's going to go off the rails, talking about the cruel history, and pours it out is another reference to that, because the tradition of pouring one out is when you have a glass of alcohol and you pour it out for somebody who is no longer there, somebody who should have had that drink, but they've passed away. And it's very specifically, you pour one out for someone who is dead. So he's saying the loser pulls it out. So whoever loses this battle is going to die. And then we get to show your imagination in a sharper way. So we've changed from novel way to sharper way, like he's challenging us that if we're going to play this game, at least be interesting about it, or at least be razor sharp, because you're going to have to be if you're dealing with him. If you come for the king, you better not miss. And that is the end of the lyrics. So let's look at the music video. The music video opens on this blackened balaclava-clad bandit with his torso destroyed, covered in black marks and burnt, playing what sounds like classical music, juxtaposed against this very radical look and this really cold environment. If we look at the environment, it looks like the basement of an office building. There's old office furniture strewn everywhere. There is a garbage chute. This being the case, are we talking about one advice being SM Entertainment? Is this a corporate thing that is sitting in the basement of a corporation? Maybe. But more importantly, out of the garbage chute and all over all of this office thing in this cold environment here is all of this paper. And this paper reminded me of ticker tape. It also looks like it could be like a giant version of shredded paper, but either way, what it is forms of communication pouring out of this garbage chute and strewn all over the ground, down in this basement, down in this garbage area. We then have a close-up of his hands that are blackened. We have the diamond, the shiny diamond, which is getting engulfed by the black. And you wonder how the heck his hands got burnt that way. Is this a being burnt by the industry type thing? Is this he's clawed his way out of hell from where he was when he was with criminal? Either way, his body is being destroyed. It's starting to obscure the shiny diamond. What has he done to be damaged beyond repair like that? And should he still be sitting at this beautiful instrument? We then get a look at his face in the balaclava. We have a flash of a collar, recurring theme with this, and instead of a veil, we actually have a balaclava, and a balaclava being far more difficult to see through than a veil. The balaclava, of course, is also a symbol of thieves. And who did I say was crucified next to Christ? A couple of thieves. So that's an interesting choice, isn't it? We also have a look at some of his tattoos. So we have a thorny branch across his heart, making his heart inaccessible. The heart on his arm is a broken heart with a weeping face inside of it. We also have a flash of his actual tattoo on his forearm. I saw a conversation about this on Twitter recently, where some people thought maybe it was to do with Flame of Love, his song. And I proposed that this was another Catholic symbol, because the burning heart is another very Catholic piece of iconography. The Mother Mary is often depicted as having a burning heart at her center. So it could also be that we don't know. He's never told us. We don't need to know. It's his business. But if we're going to interpret it, I certainly, from the moment I saw it, thought that it was the Catholic symbol of the burning heart. We also get a closer look at the balaclava here that has stitching over the mouth area. It's like it has been forced shut, but it's also been stitched into this really grotesque smile. While he's being silenced, he's also being forced to smile through this balaclava there, which is radically creepy. We then have a quick flash of him in apparent agony in what we later find out is this cramped, far too small room, and it's on a Dutch tilt, and a Dutch tilt being a camera movement where the camera twists on the spot like that. Often in film, when you're trying to show drunkenness, madness, the inversion of expectation, anything like that, you get a Dutch tilt when the camera tilts in on itself, and there are several shots of Taemin in this space, this tiny space, on a Dutch tilt, and another Dutch tilt comes back later. And now we get the first look at the famous black and white outfit. We know that all of the concept photography for Advice had a bit of a chess theme going for it. We have the black and white suit on Taemin with a checkered shirt like a chessboard, and we have the dancers in either black or white, like the black and white pieces of a chessboard. What I find interesting about this opening pose of everyone kind of lying down and only just starting to get up is the tradition in chess that when you are defeated or when you are resigning a match, you knock your king over. Everyone lying around like this, almost like chess pieces that have been defeated, they've been cleared from the board and they're lying around. He then starts moving, and only when he moves do the dancers move. Just like the lyric says, my way, he's in control of both sides of the board and nothing happens without his say. We then go to a new scene, which is him standing in front of the car crash. We find out later that it's actually his car crash. He was in the car, but at this point he is just standing clean as a whistle in front of a burning car, totally unbothered by the fact that it's a wreck behind him. We come back to the black and white scene, and now it has been lit up differently, and we have these scratchy white lines going everywhere, which I think is a visual representation of white noise. Just blah, 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 blah. Everyone's talk, all that advice turning into background noise, white noise. He then pulls out guns. He has a couple of finger guns going on there, which of course matches later on. He says, I'll shoot the one advice. And this then moves into the chorus, which has equally aggressive choreography. There's punching moves, there's pushing moves, and then there is I'll shoot the one advice, and he rubs his hands together. He's quite gleefully shooting the one advice. And we have a flash of him taking the mask off, drenched in this bloody red light that he hasn't, like a coward, covered his face and shot the one advice. He is barefaced and brazenly shooting the one advice. And we come to this very important piece of choreography, which is this one, which is a motion of shut your mouth. All of this talking, shut it. It really doesn't require any more interpretation than that. He's literally just telling everyone to shut up. We then zoom right through his eye, which becomes a lock. So we're going into a place that is behind lock and key, that is perhaps secret, and we end up in this tiny, undersized room. This room is like a bland motel. In the corner, there is even a suitcase. And interestingly, on the table, there is more than one cup. This is the kind of motel where you might stay while you are on the road or on tour. And if there is more than one cup there, then that suggests that he's being babysat in some way. Somebody's with him. He's not alone where he is. And we'll come back to the undersized room again and what that could mean, because we flash back to his second chorus and the you keep stigmatizing at verse. You keep stigmatizing coincides with this look at this jacket that seems to be covered in thorns, the same way that Christ was wearing a crown of thorns when he was crucified. So we have the stigmata and the crucifixion coming together here. There also seems to be around his neck a necklace that actually it reminds me of Black Panther, but a necklace that could be talons but also kind of look like silver teeth of like a big cat, like coming back to the violence of speech and the unwanted advice. Now we're back into the little room. So since we went through his eye and in through a locked space, we could say that we are inside his mind right now. However, I actually think this is a representation of a space that he has outgrown. The outfit itself borders on childlike. We have the cute little beret, we've got the shorts, we've got the knee socks, in the tartan. It's the way you would dress a little boy in the Victorian era. That's like what a little boy would wear. However, it has been punked up. It's got a little bit of gender bending going on there with the beautiful fishnets. Freaking love this look. I'm obsessed with it. It has somehow veered away from being childlike and landed on punk, meaning that he is a grown-up and he should not be treated as a child, but he is in this tiny space that he has completely outgrown, where he is being forced to stay, and it's twisting him and it's painful. And it comes back to, as well, him on the ground and the Dutch tilt in agony. We come back to the basement area, the thorny jacket, and this time he's dancing with all men and only men. And this coincides with him saying complete the cruel history. And I think him dancing with only men at this point is purposeful because it's all men, just like SHINee is an all-male band. We move on to the car. So fantastic. He is broken out of that tiny place that he has outgrown. He has lost the hat. His hair is messy, being reckless, but is doing it his way. We then have a flash to him in the bandit mask and the best take my own advice. And what's interesting about that mask as well, which you don't quite see in the first place, is he does have this chain chainmail over the top of it, which is often something that medieval knights would have worn, and it has these crossed swords on the forehead, which make up a cross, as in like a holy cross. Car accident. So he's broken out of that place that he's completely outgrown. He's stolen a car or whatever he's done. It's gone for a joyride and he crashes. Now, we already know, because we saw in the opening scenes of the music video, that he walks away from this just fine. So I think that this accident is saying that he would much rather have an accident doing things his way than being crushed in that small space doing things your way, the one advice way. Better to do it his way and crash and burn than to do it anyone else's way and possibly die. So he's crashed and burned, following his own rules and taking his own advice. And now we end up here. Purgatory. Purgatory is another very Catholic ideal. That's not something that is present in other forms of Christianity. Purgatory is a place that is between heaven and hell. It is for someone that is neither so bad that they go straight to hell, nor so good that they go straight to heaven. It is what you might also call limbo. And he is just hanging in the nothingness, which is again what purgatory is. Purgatory is just nothing. It's neither torturous nor blissful. It's nothing. And he is hanging in nothing. So, back to the Holy Trinity of these songs. In Criminal, he is at the gates of hell. In Idea, he is on the stairway to heaven. And now in this third piece, he hangs in limbo between the two. We come back to the warring chess pieces, and suddenly this black and white look has a whole different meaning. It's not just the warring chess pieces on either side. We are talking about the darkness of hell and the light of heaven, and that Taemin stands right in between the two of them. Even his suit is both black and white. He is between heaven and hell. He is standing in limbo. That white noise is now focusing in on this one direction. It's all focusing in on Taemin. The two sides have faced off against each other, and there he stands in the middle of it all. Back to Purgatory. The place of Purgatory is not a place that you're supposed to spend for all eternity. I mean, you can, but the purpose of Purgatory is that one might find their way to the kingdom of heaven from Purgatory if you repent from your sins. So we've returned to Purgatory and is no longer hanging in limbo, but now he's not alone. There is a piano, which means Taemin has been shown his way out of Purgatory. He just has to play the piano like a good boy. Stop your rebellion. Stop this never gonna dance again. Stop this sewn up mouth on your balaclava, not gonna sing again. If you want to get out of Purgatory, if you want to repent for your sins and find your way to heaven, you must play the piano. Go perform. We come back to the black and white piece, and although they are still split black and white, when he moves, they move, and we've come back to him controlling the chessboard, controlling these pieces. He returns to the piano in Purgatory, but instead of playing the piano, he plays us. And then we go to his absolutely iconic tracksuit look. And I think playing us comes back to what I was saying before about the crossing the line thing, possibly referring to his fans. And I think that this is referring to us again. I gotta hand it to Taemin's. We're pretty damn good people. In most fandoms, there is some sort of inter-fandom beef, like young army versus older army, or in Sharwell's OT5s versus OT4s. There isn't really anything like that with Taemin's. The only time I've seen anything like that is about Taemin's tattoos. So one camp was, show me his tattoos, I want to see his tattoos, and the other camp was, he's never going to show his tattoos, they're private. In the space of 2 weeks, Taemin managed to clown both camps. So the Show Me the Tattoos crowd got very excited for the Beyond Live because he was going to be performing Door, and they were like, sweet, he's going to be shirtless, we're going to see the tattoo. But that torso that we were chasing after remained covered. He actually wore a shirt while he did Door, completely clowned everyone who thought they were going to see a tattoo. So everyone who thought he would never show the tattoos were like, aha, vindication. However, 2 weeks later, he releases this music video and is like, what up? And it's just straight out there. We can see the whole thing, that beautiful peony on the side of his torso, there it is. And so everyone who said he was never going to show his tattoos was also clowned. He simultaneously made both camps right and wrong. But what he really did was show absolutely everybody that nobody really knows what's going on inside his head. This is Taemin's world, we're just living in it. As much as people commentating on the industry might be disapproving of tattoos, he may have gotten a lot of flack in the media, he may have been told off by his managers, he may have gotten in trouble for it in all sorts of ways. I think that it is also talking straight to his fans who were assuming one way or another, and we shouldn't have assumed, because Taemin's going to do what Taemin's going to do. And the other important thing, of course, course, about this whole look is that for the first time in the music video, we actually return to his androgyny. Through the music video, we've had a lot of traditionally masculine looks. Trousers and shirtless, it's jeans and jackets, it's a suit or whatever, but tracksuits are a completely unisex outfit, and underneath it he is wearing a crop top, which is traditionally for women. So we have returned to this sort of androgynous look, and also a baseball cap, which is something that celebrities usually put on when they're going outside and don't want to be recognized. He takes that cap off. First of all, we can see that he is crying. This one advice, this being told how he's supposed to behave, is hurting him. The way that we're all treating him is hurting him. You also see that he has a collar on. It's the second collar in the music video. And in fact, bondage, again, like with Door, bondage turns up a lot in Taemin's music videos. Yes, it's very sexual, but bondage, the word comes from being bound to something. This sort of symbol as well. It's a collar, and it actually has a lead that is disappearing under his shirt. So has he been led around up until now, like a dog on a lead? Who has the rest of the lead now, or is it down his shirt because no one gets to lead him around now and he's in control of it? When we come back to this move, which is one of my favorite moves, and we have a flash of a totally different tattoo none of us knew was there, that crying is gone. His makeup is sharp again, and we're back to, if you want to see the end, push my buttons. It's no longer smudged. He's back to being aggressive and in control and telling you that if you mess with him, there's going to be trouble. The final move, we did have everyone holding their talking symbol, but Taemin wipes them out with this really quite sort of martial arts type movement. But once again, as he has done the whole music video, he is the one in control, and they only move when he moves, destroying that talking gesture. And then we get to the final pose, which is the classic Taemin pose, hands to the sky, face to the sky, and the torso that we have seen up until now with this black paint has been destroyed yet again. So the black paint was destroying the first form of his torso, and now the white paint is destroying the black paint. It's very Taemin to have it as a black and white theme. He loves his black and white themes. He loves the heaven and the hell, the masculine, the femininity, the contrast of it all, the battle of the chess pieces, finishing on this crashed car that he is standing in front of in all of his Taemin glory in his classic Taemin pose, which is of course another reference to the Crucifixion with his arms out like that, basking in the glory of the crashed car. Hey, he did it his way. He may have crashed, but he did it his way. And so we hit the end of advice. That is my interpretation of advice, that we have really hit in so many ways the end of the tether. We have a lot of symbolism in there of absolute rebellion, symbols of being trapped in that tiny cramped space. And of course, when I call this the Holy Trinity, I really do mean that we have some very strong Catholic symbolism in there that we've had over the three, criminal idea and advice, of heaven, hell, and the third place, purgatory. What else have you picked out of the music video that I skipped over? Obviously, there is so much that there was some stuff that I was like, my brain will melt if I talk about that. For example, when he is in that tiny cramped room and he's kind of moving around the place, there is a moment where he flashes up in the mirror, but is not actually in front of the mirror. So that distorted and creepy environment that suggests he is in fact trapped in that space. And one of the most important parts of his look in this entire thing is that he has two-tone hair, much like he has the two-tone suit, and purgatory sits between the two places. My favorite thing about art is that we get to discuss it. What did you get from the music video? Let me know in the comments what you thought. I am very excited to have a chat about this because I am obsessed with this music video and this song. I never stop thinking about it because I never stop thinking about Taemin. While we're missing him, let's just really get into his art, get into that discussion. Thank you very much for joining me for a rewind, and I'm looking forward to doing more of these in the future. If you have any requests for anything that you would like to really get into the nitty-gritty of in the music video, you just let me know. Chuck it in the comments and I will happily drive myself crazy sitting in front of a computer for hours picking apart every tiny thing. I actually really enjoy it. So that's fine by me. But thank you again for joining me. 감사합니다. 사랑해요. And I will see you soon for more. 안녕.